Hello and welcome to DFS Coach Talk. It is Friday, February 26th, 2021. I am Andrew Hansen, back alongside Joe Sarvati, affectionately known as Coach. And you had a day off yesterday, Coach, a day of rest. How are you feeling on this Friday?
Fantastic, man. I am refreshed, ready to go, and I'm looking for a huge 3-day weekend. Today, Saturday, and Sunday, we are getting the brooms out and we are ready to sweep it and go after it, man. I feel good, confident, love the slates, 9-gamer today. Let's get after this.
I love it. Yeah, yesterday our GPP lineup cashed on FanDuel, but the cash lineup that I put out there, it had James Harden in it, and that didn't work out. He didn't get the run in the fourth quarter that we needed. Shane was on the podcast yesterday. He predicted that correctly. So if we can just eliminate that issue, avoid the blowouts tonight, then I think we are going to be ready to sweep it.
Well, I'll tell you, people that, you'll hear some of these folks out here saying you can't predict blowouts. Don't let that affect your build, et cetera, et cetera. Well, if you felt strong enough that Brooklyn was going to lay it to him, then like Shane did, you can't play Harden in that scenario. And so you do have to look at that. That is part of the big picture. And, as long as I mentioned that, Andrew, announcement here of sorts, we're so proud of our performance at Coach Talk, and we always try to stay out in front of the trends and the statistical analysis. And since the season has started, I've been tracking very carefully, and you and I have done a lot of background work in this area with the slates and the results. What we have found is it's actually gotten to the point now, especially on FanDuel, where the cash line is higher in some of the 50-50s than it is in the single entry tournament. So very bizarre. You hadn't seen that very often, and now it's really becoming a trend. So we are going to do some tweaking to our Coach Talk process just to stay ahead of this shift. And, we're going to announce that in our Discord. We're going to have a podcast that we're going to post also in Discord that's going to coach to those numbers and just tweak them a bit to stay out in front of the game. Because let's face it, you can't rest on your laurels even for a day. When you see something that's shifting or adjusting, you beat everybody to the punch, and it gives us an extra edge. So we're really excited about that, and we're going to institute that starting today and this weekend. So hopefully that little shift is going to give us even more of a lift. So excited about it.
Yeah, and what you're talking about is bankroll management and how you allocate your
And
investment
contest selection
and
too.
contest
Yep.
selection each night.
Yep.
Exactly.
Exactly.
All right, so let's figure out which guys we're going to play in these lineups tonight out of these 9 games. We have 6 teams involved in a back-to-back, only one total over 230, and I'm not too thrilled about that number, so we'll get to that later in the slate. But the first matchup is interesting because it's Indiana and Boston, two teams who came into this season with high hopes, and now they're right around 500. Indiana is right there, and Boston has dropped 2 games below 500 with that rough trip through the Southwest. Now they're back home. They're 2.5-point favorites. We've got a 219 total. We've got Indiana on the front end of a back-to-back. Jakar Sampson questionable for the Pacers. Everybody ready to go for Boston, including Kemba, who's back in the lineup. So what do you think here about the opener tonight?
Well, I actually saw the line move to 3 now for Boston. So my first question, and I know you're a Celtics guy too, is with the way they're playing and the way they've gotten smacked lately, Indiana's not chopped liver. They're a decent team. I was shocked to see Boston favorite, let alone by 3. Did that catch you by surprise?
It did a little bit, and you can't ignore the fact that Boston has hit a rough spot here. The media was really giving it to Brad Stevens after this last game. There's, rumors in Boston, job security for Coach Stevens, and we had
Danny Ainge,
and Danny Ainge. So we had Wick Grousbeck come out and do a spot with the local media, and he backed them. And the takeaway that I've had here in the last day or so is just thinking about the post game press conference that I watched with Brad Stevens, where he was not taking this lightly. I mean, he was intense, talking about the intense communications he's had with the guys and the mentality they need of dive on the floor, win every possession. And he also talked about Marcus Smart, and not as an excuse,
Right.
but he even said in the press conference that the numbers don't lie. When he's on the court, it makes a tremendous
Oh,
impact for the team.
he's
And
100% the catalyst to that team, no doubt.
and they don't have him. Obviously, Kemba's been in and out of the lineup. They don't have Gordon Hayward anymore, so it's just a different team.
Yeah.
And he's not going to take this lightly, and he's going to try to get these guys back on track. So it does surprise me a little bit to see them favored, but I've got to think that they'll get it back on track here.
Yeah, and I mean Vegas certainly believes so, and that line makes you a little wary. I still think Indiana's a better play, but generally when you see a teaser line like this in a situation, Vegas doesn't miss too many of them. But that low spread and it's 218.5 total, which isn't the greatest. They are the 10th and 15th rated defensive teams in the league, so not bad. And the pace is nothing to write home about. Indiana, middle of the pack, and Boston down to 23rd. So not really a stackable game for me in any sense. I do like the little narrative though that Sabonis feels slighted, and he should. I firmly believe he should have made the All-Star game. And really, the spot I think that was taken that he should have had was either by Tatum or Brown, probably Brown. But I don't understand why Boston would get two guys in there with all these other good players like Trae Young and all these other folks left out. And Sabonis is 2010 for crying out loud. He's carrying that team. And Boston is 2 games below 500. So I think that's going to be a little tweak for Sabonis to play even tougher. And regardless, I think he's a great matchup here because Boston's interior is in confusion. They played Tice, I think, 12 minutes, and he had like 3 fantasy points, I believe, last game. Something ridiculous. Thompson's getting a little extra run. Williams, they rotate around, play small. So the bottom line is there's no super interior defense, and they have to worry about Turner and Sabonis. So, I don't think either one is a bad play, but I think Sabonis could really do well in this game. I'm not loving having to pay that far up in a game with this kind of a total, but I think if anybody can hit 7x here, I still think Sabonis can do it with even that big salary. And on the Boston side, the only guy that's intriguing for me is Kemba Walker at his price. He's rested. It looks like he really wants to get it going. You can see he wants to go. He just hasn't put it together or got the minutes. But I'm sure he's sitting on a big game. So I will consider him. And more than likely, Sabonis will be one of my key plays today. But that's about it. I don't want to stack beyond that in this game by any stretch. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I don't want to stack this game. The thing with Sabonis and Tatum, those are the two pay-up guys, of course. And I think they're both motivated. I think Tatum really is going to try to put the team on his shoulders to get back on track. He certainly struggled in Atlanta when he went 4 for 20.
That was brutal, man. That was rough to watch.
It was. I think it was a complete aberration, though. I think he'll get back on track. So it's a GPP situation for me with Sabonis or Tatum just because of their price and because of this game environment. And I see your attraction to Kemba. I'm a little bit more interested in Brogdon if I'm going to use somebody from this game right around 8,000. He gets the Kemba Walker defense. So that'd be the guy I would look at most likely. But there's a chance I'll just pass this game and save my salary for later in the slate.
Sounds good.
All right, the next game we have also at 7:30, Houston against Toronto. 221 total. Toronto favored by 8.5. And how about Houston coming in here with 9 consecutive losses?
Yeah.
So we are not surprised that Toronto's favored by 8.5. They're getting back on track. They've won 4 of their last 6. So with everybody healthy here, I kind of like Lowry as a point guard on DraftKings tonight. He's 7,000, and he just got back in the lineup against Miami. Played very well in 35 minutes. almost had a triple-double. I think he can succeed against John Wall and company. Siakam is interesting for me because we know that Houston is really small now. Without
Right.
Wood, without Cousins, we've had Tucker playing the small ball center, and Siakam has started at center recently. So I see them feeding him in the post, and I see him getting it done against
Yeah.
Tucker and House and company. He's really expensive on FanDuel. He's a small forward at 8,800,
Yeah.
but 7,900 on DraftKings is interesting to me, and he's shouldn't get extremely high ownership. He had a real dud against Miami. He's just a little bit of a guy you want to avoid on back to backs, and that's what that was for Toronto last game out. So I like the idea of possibly Siakam or Lowry. Not very excited about the Houston guys with this ninth ranked Toronto defense. I was thinking about House a little bit. He will probably have to play against OG Anunoby, but House is 4,500 as a small forward on FanDuel. And his shooting has picked up here the last few games. You know, he had that real cold streak. But
Yeah.
if he's shooting well, 4,500 as a starter is a price that I might pay tonight.
Interesting. You know, this Houston is really in a free fall. They're a complete mess. They're in rebuild mode or whatever you want to call it. I'm sure John Wall is probably just shaking his head, sort of disgusted with
Exactly.
what he's got to work with there. PJ Tucker seems to have all of a sudden, looking at retirement. I don't know. I don't think he's got it anymore. He's just not, getting it done at that size. I think too long they played him out of position, and I think it's just worn him down, to be honest. But I think this game could blow out, and there we go. We're calling blowouts, but it is the biggest spread on the entire slate, and Houston is in a free fall. They have to play at Tampa, and Toronto is at full strength, and it's going to be tough for Houston. Even when Toronto comes off the bench with Boucher and some of these guys, Houston's second rotation is going to struggle. So my concern in this game is paying up for one of the Toronto guys and it being a blowout. However, I agree with you on Siakam because they don't have a matchup for him, and I don't know if they'll try to put Tate on him, but Tate's pretty small, really, for Siakam. I think he'll be able to back him down and shoot over him. He is scrappy, but I just think Siakam is the guy that is, if it does blow out, is going to be the biggest part of that blowout. And I agree with you. If you statistically look at him on the second night of back-to-backs, he struggles. But then on a rest, if he's had a day of rest, he's much better. So I think they feed him. I think he's the recipient of getting the game to a blowout. And if it does stay closer for longer, then he really could smash 8x kind of numbers even at that price. Prefer him a little more on FanDuel like you do. But after that, I'm not going to spend up for the Lowry Van Vliet. I just don't know if they'll get enough run, and they're both very expensive. And on the Houston side, I respect Lowry's defense. I know Wall's their only option, but he's pretty expensive. And if you have to go value here, maybe a Nawaba or a Tate or somebody like that, if you're wanting more exposure to this game, it is a decent, 220.5 is not bad. But for me, it's probably going to be a one-off with Siakam and get on down the road and hope that stays close enough that he can smash it.
Excellent. All right. Well, game 3 here. Speaking of the road, we've got Sacramento continuing their road trip. They lost last night in New York, their 9th consecutive loss. And
Yeah.
get this, Coach. In those 9 losses, they've always given up at least 118 points every night.
Wow.
And the closest loss they've had is 8 points. So they're getting blown out every night, 9 in a row. You talk about post-game press conferences. I heard a series of them after this last one. And, everybody up and down the line is questioning the team's defense. We know that they're 30th
Right.
in the league.
Yep.
And we had De'Aaron Fox saying we just don't have five guys on a string playing together. We have Harrison Barnes talking about we need to get back to the basics, the boxing out. And
Yeah.
then Coach Walton basically, flummoxed with the question about, are you going to change your starting lineup tomorrow? He's saying, well, I need to think about it. I mean, I'll let you know tomorrow. So who
By the
knows?
way, if you look up flummoxed in the dictionary, it's a picture of Luke Walton.
It probably
So
is
there you
from last night. No doubt about it. So we'll see what we get this afternoon in terms of any changes. But the question is, do you think they can turn it around against Detroit tonight?
Well, I'll tell you this. You have to double check this for me because I don't understand this. Sacramento -2 right now? Is that right?
It is Detroit. The Fighting Shane Caldwells are.
Detroit's been scrappy though, and they
Yeah.
get Grant back. How could they be a dog at home against this pathetic Sacramento team?
I mean,
I,
Sacramento does have more talent than Detroit, right? Let's be honest.
I mean, maybe, but the coaching is a big negative, and recency, 9 losses in a row to be favored on the road. I don't know. I guess this is one of those Vegas ones where, like the road runner under the rock with chasing the sucker and the rock smashes him. Maybe I'm the road runner here, but I'm playing Detroit. I think they're right now a better team. It is key, though, piece of news here. Sadiq Bey has been a really, really nice, solid starter getting upper 20s minutes, and he's questionable. So that could mix the pot a little bit. But they have Plumlee, who's playing really good ball. They've got obviously Grant with a rest day. He's going to be, I mean, he's a plug and play. I think he'll be one of the highest owned pay up guys in the entire industry tonight. I think Grant's a great play. Plumlee, maybe. I don't know how you don't, give Lee a consideration. He's done nothing but score in the minutes that he gets. Smith Jr.'s been better, and Sacramento can't defend anybody. So, I can easily come out of this game with 2 or 3 Pistons. I know it sounds insane, but we'll have to see if Bey doesn't play, his usage is going to go to some of these other guys. It just lifts up Grant and Lee and some of the other guys on the floor and Plumlee. So I think those guys are all in play for me. On the Sacramento side, I think Barnes will get Grant defense. That's going to push him to the side for me. I guess, obviously the guy you have to look at here is, one of your favorites, Fox. I mean, if the game pace is decent, they're ninth. Sacramento's ninth, so it's a monster pace down for them to play Detroit that's 25th. So that concerns you a little bit with Fox or Hield, but it is a pace up for Detroit. Another reason why I like some guys there. My goal here would be probably 2 Pistons and maybe move on. But I know you're probably going to like Fox here, and I think that he's a reasonable play, even though his price is a little touchy.
Yeah, on the Sacramento side, looking at the fact that it's a back-to-back and Fox is the leader of this team now, these guys really do struggle on back-to-backs. The only guys that I think are really in consideration for me are Fox and Halliburton because they don't struggle as much. So yeah, Fox is a consideration for me. He'd be the leader there. But I am actually a little bit more interested in the Detroit side, like you said, and I don't think it's crazy to think about 2 Pistons. 3, probably not 3, but if you think about what New York did last night, we had Alec Burks in our winning GPP lineup on FanDuel,
Yeah.
and Quickly was excellent off the bench. He paid off, and Derrick Rose as a starter. All 3 of those guys paid off. I mean, they scored
Yeah.
140. We went in depth about how Sacramento can't stop anybody. Do they turn it around and pick it up here against Detroit with their slow pace? Maybe. So I'm not thinking that Detroit's gonna score 140 on them, but like you said, Dennis Smith Jr. is playing better. He's under 5,000 on both sites. He got 26 minutes last game. So the question is, what happens here? Because Saban Lee had been getting more minutes than him, but it was 26-22 this last time out. I think they're both still in play, and they both could potentially hit value at the 4K range. So
Yeah.
I'm looking there. Plumlee, I'm
They did
looking
have
at.
their first shift next to each other on the floor at the same time, which is promising.
It is promising.
Yeah.
I agree with you. Grant makes a lot of sense with his rest. Plumlee was excellent against New Orleans again, over
Yeah.
50 fantasy points,
Yeah.
and he gets the tired Sacramento front court. So I'm with you there. A couple Pistons very likely tonight.
Oh, Dirk just said he's booking it.
Book it.
Detroit +2.
Ooh,
Detroit
interesting.
+2.
All
Yeah,
right.
there you go.
Game 4 is another 8 o'clock tip. Utah in Miami. This total is 217. Utah favored by 7. And they're on the front end of a back-to-back. They're in the Florida swing. They're going to play Orlando tomorrow. Big news here, Coach, with Miami. We've got Hero and Bam questionable as we record this here at lunchtime. That will determine everything for me in this game. If Bam is out, then how are they going to stop Gobert? He becomes in play for me. For me, I need one of those guys to be out to play anybody in this game because we've got the 2nd and 7th ranked defenses, pace of 22 and 24.
Yeah,
So
no
I'm
good.
this is like first team to 90 is going to win this game. If you get to 100, you're really scoring here in this one. So it's only if we get some value because a guy like Bam is out, then you've got a great matchup for Gobert. What do? Do they slide Olynyk over and try to guard him? Do they bring Precious Achiuwa off the bench? Either way, I think Gobert's in a pretty good spot. And then with the guards, if Hero sits, none is still a decent price at 5 in the 5K range, but a little tougher matchup here than he's had recently with Conley. Dragic is the guy I'm looking at because on FanDuel he's 4,600. He played 21 minutes against Toronto in his first game back and did fine. And I just think that price is too cheap for a guy that might get 24 minutes or more. So he's the value play I'm looking at on Miami. With Utah, maybe Gobert, or maybe a one-off for a guy like O'Neal who can take advantage of a game where you get more from the rebounds than scoring a ton of points. So, maybe a one-off here depending on the news.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I think that's key. When I first started looking at this slate yesterday and was just developing some notes and looking up some basketball-reference.com scenarios there. And if any of you guys haven't been there, go to basketball-reference.com, look at advanced stats. It's an amazing help if you're preparing for a slate to look at usage, who's on the floor. You could take people off the floor and see how it's going to work. And, I went in there initially and I thought, this is a perfect game for a letdown for Utah. They have played just the most incredible ball by far by anybody this season. But coming off a big win, you would think they're due for a letdown. But then the Bam and Hero news breaks, which, if they have a shot to beat them, they really do need those guys, at least Bam, with that interior with Gobert. So, that changed things a little bit. But I can't really say who to play or not play in this game until I have the information on Bam and Hero because there's a huge difference in usage and minutes if those, either one of or both or neither are on the floor. So we need to know that. And once we have that information, we will share that in our Discord. Phenomenal time to come aboard. We have just started this a couple weeks ago. You can get a 3-day pass with us for only $10. Just go to dfscoachtalk.com. If you sign up today, we'll get you in our Discord. You'll have everything today, Saturday, and Sunday. All of our information, all of our lineups. We do full lineups for FanDuel and Yahoo, both hybrid and GPP. And then we have a real sharp coach's clipboard for Draftkings, which gives you a highlighted core and then some multiple group of secondary guys to get into your lineup and make your decisions from there. So this is the time to do it. And this is the kind of game that, we want to share everything. We don't hold anything back on this podcast. We're in front of the paywall 7 days a week. And, we're going to give you everything we've got. But there are scenarios like this. And when there are changes at the last minute of games, of like Boban starting last night, for example, there's different things that happen that the only way you can really consistently win at this, unless you're grinding away at it all day, then more power to you. But let us do that work for you. We're on this 24/7. We're in Discord. We're putting up the news as soon as it happens, adjusting lineups. And we're not just dumping it into an optimizer and letting it spit the changes out. We're looking at it like, if Bam sits, what is that? How does that affect it? Is Dragic get more minutes at the guard and Olynyk plays more at center? Or is it going to be a Precious Achiuwa coming in and getting the bulk of those minutes, etc.? We'll look through all of those things with the scenario of that and let you know where the best value and best play is. So this is one of those games that I'm going to wait to see. But I will tell you, if Bam and Hero are in, I think Miami makes this a game. Utah has got to come out flat one of these games. And this just makes sense with the road trip and coming off a big win. I just think this is a good spot for them to be susceptible.
It would make sense with the way Miami plays. The only thing I would say, though, is Utah seems to be on this run where they just want to keep setting records and taking their incredible stats. Their three-point shooting is phenomenal.
It's crazy.
And they shoot a ton of threes and they make a ton of threes. So it's almost like they're just carrying that momentum and they just want to ride it out. And so I wouldn't bet against them at this point. Human nature is, you'd think eventually they would have a dud. And Miami is the type of team that can prompt you to have a dud. So we'll see. It'll be a fun one to watch.
I'm excited. I'm a coach guy. My three favorite coaches in the league, two of them are right here: Spoelstra and Snyder, and I think Nurse. Those three, to me, I'll take those three all day long.
Yeah, great choices there for sure. All right, next 8 o'clock game we have Phoenix in Chicago. 225 total. Phoenix favored by 6.5. Dario Saric questionable here. Other than that, let it loose. What do you got?
225 is a nice number, but my anti-Phoenix scenario here. I know I get stung by it sometimes, but I just am not the biggest Phoenix guy when they share the ball so much. And they're playing great ball. They're good defensively. But, you've got Phoenix favored by 6.5. And Chicago's the 18th best defense. So Phoenix should have their way in definitely in the backcourt with Paul and Booker. But determining which one, both all-stars now, is the better play. Phoenix is 9th. They've been in that top 10. So that makes a little tougher to pay up for Levine, although he's been fantastic. And then from a pace standpoint, the other concern you have is, Chicago's 5th, but Phoenix seems to control the pace of every game, and they're second slowest team in the entire league. So, if they get Chicago into a half-court game, it's going to be a tough night for the Bulls. But if somehow the Bulls can, keep the pace going, then, I think it could be a game. A lot of it may come down to, the White Levine backcourt and being able to push it, and stretch Phoenix a little bit. I'm not going to spend up for any of the big three for Phoenix or Levine, because I just don't like the flow of this game. But I do think there's value in this game. I think there'll be points scored. I think you can, start to look at a few of the secondary guys, Kobe White being one of them. Thad Young is interesting. My boy Patrick Williams has been playing better and better every game. And then from the Phoenix side, just taking a peek at some of their role guys like Crowder, who's smashed value a few times. And, I think you can find some decent guys to help balance your roster in this game, but I'm not going to lean on it as a key game.
I agree completely. And I'd like to get a Phoenix guy out there and to give some numbers here to back up what you were just talking about. You look at Phoenix's last game, it was a high-scoring game against Charlotte, and you see that Chris Paul almost had a triple-double. Booker had over 30 points, and Ayton had a nice double-double. And you figure, oh, well, everybody smashed. Well, only one of them hit value. Chris
Yeah.
Paul got to 50 fantasy points, but the other guys didn't even get to 40. And we've talked about that throughout the season. And here's another great scenario where good matchup, you want to get exposure to them, but it is risky because Paul and Booker, they kind of vacillate, who has the ceiling game. So to me, I'd like to play one of them, but it's only really in a GPP. I think I might lean towards Booker here in a GPP, but they're about the same price. So we're going to have to see how the roster construction plays out. So I like a Phoenix guy in the GPP, one of those guards, or even one of the secondary guys like you mentioned. I mean, if Saric is out, we should get a little bit more usage for Crowder, even Cam Johnson. He's really cheap now all of a sudden, or Bridges in the starting lineup. So I'll probably end up with one Sun in the GPP.
Sounds good.
All right, the next 8 o'clock game is a rematch from last night. Clippers and Grizzlies in Memphis, and it was a blowout. Coach, I know you took the night off. Did you have the Grizzlies beating the Clippers by 28 points last night?
I actually bought the line Memphis minus 25. So
so you can retire on an island.
I'm solid.
If
man.
you play that, wow.
That was shocking. And you wonder, are the Clippers going to come out with a chip on their shoulder? What do you think?
Well, that's a good question. But the next question is, how many minutes does everybody play? Because it is a back-to-back. The Clippers are really tight on that. They've specifically been managing Paul George's minutes very closely, not letting him get to 36. Again, at this point in the day, we don't have any news that anybody's sitting.
No.
So if they're all there again, the problem is it's crowded. Yesterday on the show, I said I didn't really want to play anybody from the Clippers. I did say I liked Paul George potentially on FanDuel as a GPP option, and he was in our GPP lineup that cashed, but he didn't have a great game. It was the rest of the team that carried us to victory there. And, it's still probably Paul George or nothing for me. He's $1,100 cheaper than Kawhi on FanDuel, $500 cheaper on DraftKings, and he only played 28 minutes. So, he could get it done here, but it's just too many guys for the Clippers in general. So I'm not excited about this game in the back-to-back. Kawhi played 32 minutes, and Ja Morant played 30 on the other side. Those are the only guys on either side that played over 30 minutes. So it's just a rough situation. With the Grizzlies, Joe Val played great in his 25 minutes. Justice Winslow did just enough as a value play to help out. He's a similar price tag here, but it is a back-to-back. Tillman is pretty cheap on DraftKings. He's $3,600. If he gets half the game again against Zubats, I think on DraftKings he could pay off. But it's a real struggle in this game, and this is not really something I want to focus on tonight.
Yeah, this could bury your lineup, or it could bring home a victory. I mean, nobody really knows what to expect here. You've got all of that tough, second night against the same team. Who is going to have a minutes, invisible minutes cap, if you will? They're not stating anybody is at this point. So it creates a lot of confusion. Obviously, with the Clippers at 6.5 point favorites, everybody believes that was just a complete farce last night. But who knows? Maybe the Clippers are slumped. Memphis has their number. I mean, we just don't know. But they're the 19th and 14th defense, but pace isn't great. 27th and 14th. I mean, with 9 games, why take a chance in a game with this much confusion that could sink your ship, especially if you pay up for Kawhi or George or even, Morant or Joval. Yeah. So my gut tells me just stay away, but I think there is some risk reward if you do select the right guy that gets minutes and gets it done. Because my first instinct was Kawhi's going to come out there and kick ass, but is he? I need him to play 35 minutes to do that, to to smash his number. So I'm just not confident that he'll get that. But that would be the guy if I had the courage. Maybe I'll play a GPP and use Kawhi just in case he throws a 60 burger on the board. But I'm with you. This game is, for a cash player like myself, just a little bit concerning.
Okay. Let's see if you like anything better than the next one. It's Atlanta in Oklahoma City. The Hawks are favored by 5, 226.5 total. We've got OKC on the front end of a back-to-back. They're going to host Denver tomorrow. For the news, we have Cam Reddish questionable for the Hawks. And on the OKC side, we have Horford and Diallo out tonight. What do you have here?
Well, I like this game. I think this is going to get some play, and I think deservedly so. Atlanta's a 5.5-point favorite, but we know OKC is a battling team. I expect it to be fairly close. Loved the play the other day, by the way, that they drew up for Horford drawing in the defense and kicked it to Dort for that wide open three. That was a fun play. I love that Dagnall guy. He's up and comer for sure. There's things here to like. 22nd and 12th defensively. So, you've got a little bit lower than an average there. That 227.5 number is decent. Pace middle, 11th, 16th. So it's not going to be a slow game. And then you've got, a couple of substitutes coming in for Oklahoma City. Now, every time Horford sat, we've done a lot of Roby. And, I'm going to consider that again. The kid's good. He's done nothing to not earn that. Now, I know Capella's pretty stout on the other side, but, Capella gets played off the floor a lot. I don't know if you noticed that. I mentioned it on the last pod as well, but he's good and he gets it done, but I don't like the trend of him getting pulled off and not finishing games. I know he's a bad foul shooter, and there's a lot of reasons to that, but I think Roby's reasonable at a cheap price, again, to fill in that spot and get you 25, 30 DFS points. It's possible. Without Diallo playing, it gives a little bit even more credence to Shea. I would assume Shea is going to be one of the higher owned guys because he gets trade defense. And on the other side, Trey's going to get a lot of play because he's hot. He's another guy that's pissed he didn't make the All-Star team, and he's sort of trying to show everybody up.
And he's back in Oklahoma. Where he started.
That's his hometown, and that OU is right down the road there. I did a lot of business up in Oklahoma City, and I went to some OU games and some Thunder games, and they're literally 15 minutes apart from one stadium to the other. So, Trey will be super popular. This would be a fun game, and I think a lot of people do it really to just use your buy-up money, play Trey, play Shea, and just old-fashioned shootout. So, I would not disagree with that at all. I don't know if I'll do that. I'd probably go with one or the other. I'm still deciding. But I do like some of the ancillary parts of this game also. I think that guys like your man Herter is in play. I think your other man is in play here too, the rookie. Who's your Thunder rookie?
Oh, Maladon?
Maladon. He's in play a little bit too with Diallo out. He should get a little extra burn. The Durantulas played well enough that, he's making value. So there's so many good options in this game, and the whole game has such a good vibe to it for pace. And, this is going to be a key game, and I think it deserves to be. And I'll come out of here with 2-3 guys from this game and probably one or two of my buy-up spots because I think it just fits, and it fits for a DFS standpoint as well.
I'm in the same place as you are, just playing around with this idea of Trae Young and Shea in the same lineup. I haven't decided yet. It worked in the last game with DeJounte Murray and Shea.
Right.
And what a blow-up spot there for Shea. It surprised me a little bit. We talked on that podcast about how we liked his price on FanDuel. He was cheaper. Same thing again here. He's only $8,000. Do you know he scored over 40% of the team's points that day? He scored 42 of their 102. I mean, he smashed. So he's really stepping it up here. A great spot for him. I agree. Dort, does he ride high after that game winner and roll in here against Atlanta, who they're shorthanded here. They continue to be without DeAndre Hunter, their best defender.
Yeah.
Dort is a very good price on both sites.
Do you
Maladon,
think Dort tries to play Trey?
yeah, I think he probably does.
I mean, I don't know if he's quick enough to stick with Trey, but that'd be a challenge for. I mean, Dort guards all five positions, but more I think about it, that makes sense.
Quick is the word. That's the thing that Trey has. He has those quick spurts that allow
And
him
that
to
little
get,
floater
yeah,
inside is deadly.
it's magical. So
Yeah,
it'll be a tough challenge for Dort, but it'll be a very tough challenge for Trey to deal with him. So
yeah,
that's a great point. I think I probably will lean towards Shea. 1,600 cheaper on FanDuel, and he should have a much better defensive matchup.
right.
In terms of the value plays, Justin Jackson is a guy that I think we might want to look at because with Diallo out, who's going to score off the bench? I think it's Jackson's opportunity at 3,100 on DraftKings. He's had some 30-point fantasy games here recently when he's gotten the minutes. He's not probably
Right.
going to start here, but there's a way to get exposure to this game. And then on the other side, you've got Tony Snell as an option. And in his two last games, he's hitting the threes and he's paying off value because of it as a starter. So,
That's one of those cringy ones for me, though. Tony Snell.
yeah,
Oh,
it is because if he misses the threes, then it's a flop and it doesn't
yeah.
work out.
Good GPP, though.
Good GPP option. All right, next game we have Charlotte and Golden State. We've got two 10 o'clock games to break down here and finish out this slate, Coach. And here's the 230 total on this board. It's 233.5. That's where it was this morning on BetUS when I opened it up, and that jumped out at me as too high. And it wasn't that long ago. It was last Saturday, I believe, that these two teams played, and it was
Right.
102 to 100. So a
Right.
total of 202, and now we're going to go to 233.5.
Yeah.
Well, okay, Steph Curry didn't play in that game. So that's the big change. And he is an enormous factor in any game, an influence on the pace and on the output because of his tremendous scoring and his efficiency. So will that be enough to get him over that total? I'm not sure. In that game, not only was it only 202 points, but Charlotte shot 20 for 40 on the three-pointers. So
Wow.
they had a terrific shooting night just to get to 102. And Golden State, we've talked about it a lot. You don't think of it, but they're third in the league in defense.
Yeah.
So interesting game here and total. I wanted to bring that up right at the top. We've got Devontae Graham out again, along with Caleb Martin. And then we have Cody Zeller questionable for Charlotte. Everybody healthy and ready to go for Golden State. Now, one of the price situations here that jumped out at me on this slate is that the Charlotte guys are a lot cheaper on FanDuel.
Right.
DraftKings is just pricing them through the roof. LaMelo
They
and
priced
Rozier,
LaMelo out of his mind.
I
It's
mean,
crazy.
ridiculous,
Yeah.
but way cheaper on FanDuel for both of those guys.
Right.
So you could look at one of those guys as a one-off. Rozier has really struggled since that big game against Golden State.
Yeah.
If Cody Zeller sits, we may have Bismack Biyombo out there in the starting lineup, and I'm willing to get him out there in the low 3K range on both sites. Looney and Wiseman, they're both back on the other side, basically splitting minutes, not even because they've got Pascal back there, and
Right.
they aren't pushovers. But Biyombo to me is a guy who can get 8 and 8 or 9 and 9 and a block or two, and pay off that cheap price tag if he gets 26 to 30 minutes. So I'll play him if Zeller is out. On the Golden State side, Draymond is the guy probably I'd be most likely to play. He's flirted with triple doubles the last couple games, and that's the stretch where you want Draymond is when he's flirting with triple doubles. The big guys for Golden State are cheap, but like I said, none of them even got 20 minutes last game, so I'm not going to go there. So possibly a value play on Charlotte and maybe Draymond for Golden State.
Interesting. Yeah, this is an interesting game. I don't like it as much as the Atlanta Oklahoma City game. I'm with you. Even though it's a full, 5-6 points higher, on the total. I still like the other game a little bit better. Now, I do think they'll get close to that 233 number, though. I don't buy that 202. I think that was just a fluke. Charlotte's playing terrible defense lately. I don't know if you've noticed the last 5 games, they're just getting scorched. So they're on the road, West Coast, probably getting tired with the travel and then getting stuck in the rooms with COVID. They can't even move around really. And I think Golden State can score a lot of points in this game. But my feeling is if Zeller sits, I think the game goes small. I think you'll see a lot of PJ Washington at center and a lot of small ball. And then I think Golden State reacts on the other side with either Draymond or Pascal at center. I think maybe those minutes for Looney and Weissman get squeezed out a little bit, as well as with Biyombo. So I don't like any of the bigs here, but I do have a lot of interest in the guards. I think Wiggins is actually a really good play because Steph Curry is. I said Seth Curry. He's not as good as his brother Seth, but
Right.
we'll go anyway with Steph. But I think he'll get Rozier defense, which to me, with the real high price of Curry, I mean, yeah, he can score on anybody, but I think that's enough that I can fade him. So Wiggins is more of, I think, the guy that could be the sneaky high scorer in this game. And then I love both guys. I'm going to plug in both LaMelo and Rozier on FanDuel because you got a good value there. Now, you cannot play both on DraftKings realistically. And I actually, even though Rozier's been a little slumped, he sees a few go in. He's streaky. So I'm not afraid to play him against the Golden State defense. I think he would get a slight edge over LaMelo. If I had extra salary, I think this could be a better game for LaMelo. You got to, this is LaMelo back on the West Coast, with a lot of family and friends, I'm sure, traveling from all over in California there to see him play. I know it's, not right down the street from where he's from, but still, that's, he's in his neck of the woods there. So I do, I like the guards in this game and will easily come out of here with maybe 2 players, but I'm not going to stack up and pay way up for Steph here. I think that he can be neutralized at least a little bit to not smash his number.
Right on. All right, last game of the night, Coach. Portland against the Lakers in Staples Center. Lakers favored by 5 after getting smoked by Utah. And the total here, 221.5. And the news is that Schroeder is probable. He's been out with the health and safety protocols. The reports I've seen are vague and inconclusive about whether he has tested positive for COVID or whether it was just contact tracing. So with that being said, if he's out there, do you have any interest in anybody in this contest?
I was so disappointed in the Lakers I thought they'd give Utah a game or at least hang in there, but they look bad right now. I guess they miss Anthony Davis more than we expected that they would, but Portland's second worst defensive team in the league. So you would think that would spark some Lakers ownership here. On the other side, Lakers are the number 1 defense in the league. Not quite the same without Davis in there for sure, but they're still getting it done. And then to add to that, they're the 18th and 19th pace. So a lot of dribbling from Dame, setting up sort of one-on-one or setting up some type of pick and roll with Cantor. So I don't love the pace here. And the Lakers are not in a groove where you would think they're going to just blow up a game. I'm not going to spend up for Dame or LeBron here. I just don't like the feel for the game or the pace. Don't want to use all the salary on those two, and they're 2 of the more expensive guys. But I do want a little exposure. I think there's a lot of sharp plays in this game, whether it be Covington, Derrick Jones Jr., Trent, all those guys, Cantor even a little bit. So, not all of them, obviously, but one of them, I think, you can pull out of that group. And then on the Lakers side, it's more of a possibility of Kuzma with the minutes he's getting. I don't know. I would expect Schroeder. It's hard to say what to expect, to be honest with you. If it was just contact tracing, maybe he doesn't have any minutes limit. But he hasn't been playing, so you would think, or low 20s. So that's not exciting to me. And, I don't really want to go a whole lot deeper there. I don't want Gasol or some of those guys. So even though Portland has a terrible defense, Kuzma's probably the guy I'm looking at right now, but I could probably be talked into a second value Laker if it does fit. But I want some exposure on the Portland side, believe it or not, from some of those wings. Wouldn't mind having a couple of Trailblazers that aren't Dame. I think they'll double Dame and try to get him to give up the ball. I don't see a number one defense allowing Dame to score 45 real points to beat him. So we'll see how that pans out.
Yeah, I think I would lean towards one of the more expensive guards that we've talked about over Lillard here. I'm going to pass on him. I could potentially go with one of the cheaper Portland guys. Trent is still at a good price. Melo, maybe he'll try to step it up against his buddy LeBron. But I think I'm more likely to get one of the guys on the Lakers side who's cheaper. KCP, I've been playing a little bit here with Davis and Schroeder out. If Schroeder's in there, it takes a little bit away from KCP, who's really gotten bigger minutes and bigger shots, and he's still really cheap. And the thing is, it is still this great matchup against Portland in that weak backcourt. So that's why I like KCP a little bit here. And then Markieff Morris would be the GPP option if he starts again. He's only 3,700 on FanDuel, so that could help out here on a 9-game slate, getting up to some of the more expensive guys we want to get to.
That would not be bad at all.
All right, Coach, that concludes our 9-game slate. Any final thoughts here before we build these winners?
I think it's going to be a really good slate to play because there's just not dead chalk, and we'll see how the day plays out because there's not really just like value that you can't pass up. So there's going to be a lot of variance in people's lineups, and so it should be a really, really fun night. So I am good to go, man. Why don't you tell them about our BetUS offer, and we'll get on down the road.
Absolutely, yeah. If you're watching on YouTube, it's scrolling on the bottom right now, and if you can make your first deposit at betus.com.pa, then they've set up an awesome offer for you. Make the deposit of $149 with the promo code CoachTalk, all one word. And what you're going to do is you're going to get to use that on BetUS however you want for your sports wagering. And you're going to get a free membership with us until June 1st. So basically the rest of the NBA regular season for free. So you just can't beat it. So after
and the start of baseball, don't forget Major League Baseball.
And golf continuing along. So jump on that really now while you can and take advantage of it because, the time goes all the way until June 1st, regardless of when you sign up. So jump in now and take advantage of the full time period. And after you've signed up, let us know on Twitter at DFS CoachTalk. Let us know that you've signed up, and then we'll send you an email to get you into our Discord. We'll give out our lineups tonight about 20 minutes before tip. All right, if you have any questions, you can also reach out to us on Twitter. The coach is available at JoeySarvadi. You can find me at Language Olympic. Shane is at DET Sports Shane. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to our YouTube channel on the way out. Thank you so much for tuning in today on behalf of Coach and the rest of the DFS Coach Talk team. I'm Andrew Hansen. We'll see you tomorrow as we look to crush it in DFS.